Namaste, everyone. This podcast is going to be about the upcoming new moon in Magha Nakshatra in sidereal Leo, which is going to take place on 22nd or 23rd August, depending on your time zone. I apologize in advance for the sound quality. I'm still a little bit sick as I'm recording it well in advance before my journey to India, just so I can continue with these podcasts and so you can get a little planetary info, a little information about our ongoing lunar cycle. Because I do believe, and as I hear from your feedback too, that it's so helpful sometimes to understand a little bit better what each lunar cycle exactly is about. What life lessons does it bring into our lives? And what is generally the energy? Because that's really what lunar cycle is about. As moon keeps changing the signs so frequently and circumambulates, the whole zodiac, we together evolve with it. And of course, it has a certain impact on our mind. So new moons are always about withdrawal of energy, because during every new moon is coming back towards the sun, gradually approaching the sun, while with every step losing a little bit of its brightness, a little bit of its shiny quality. And similarly, during new moon, we are always almost inspired to renounce some things in our lives that also kind of lost, their purpose along the way, perhaps, that maybe are not supportive for us anymore, but became a burden. So every new moon is always about that, about realizing what perhaps has to go away from our lives. How can we make more space for something new? Now, the upcoming new moon is going to take place in a very unique place in the zodiac, I would say, because sun and moon will meet together on 6th degree of sidereal Leo, which is actually precisely the place where we have Regulus, the brightest star of Magha Nakshatra in the sky. And as you already know, or perhaps remember, already earlier this year, there was a little bit of activation of this area of the zodiac. On 17th June, specifically, Mars was transiting literally right on top of Regulus, incredibly close to this brightest star of Magha Nakshatra. And whenever, we have something like that happening and later on being furtherly reactivated by a new moon happening exactly at the same spot in the sky one more time, of course it draws our attention. It makes us think why Magha Nakshatra and its life lessons become so important, perhaps to us in this particular year. So let's unpack that a little bit. So now, Magha Nakshatra is being ruled by Ketu, which has a lot to do with detachment, also symbolic renunciation, while at the same time the very symbol of Magha Nakshatra is a royal throne, Simhasan, right? As it is a Simha Rashi, the sign of Leo, the lion throne. So on the most mundane level, what happens when Magha Nakshatra and its brightest star in particular becomes so activated during a lunar cycle is that we are invited firstly to rethink some of our priorities in life, especially around the topics of which roles we are playing in life, which identities we took on upon ourselves that perhaps do not serve us anymore, which responsibilities perhaps it's time to renounce, and which other roles perhaps it's time to step into right now. Whenever Magha Nakshatra is so powerfully activated in the sky, it becomes a very powerful time for all of us to step a little bit more into our power. Think a little bigger about some things that are really important for us, and really realign with those things that are important, with those things that resonate, with those things that feel like this is our dharma, this is our duty, this is what I want to do. And especially when new moon occurs in Magha Nakshatra, on one hand, this desire to realign becomes even greater inside of us. And on the other side of the spectrum, we simultaneously feel like perhaps some of our outdated roles and responsibilities, it's time for them to go. It's time to make space for something else. It's time to allow it to literally die. Magha Nakshatra is actually strongly associated with energies of goddess Dhumavati, as her appearance day often takes place, with moon in Magha Nakshatra. And Dhumavati is the widow goddess who holds this fascinating tool for separating the grain from the husks, and reminds us through that we too sometimes need to be more discerning. We too sometimes need to let go things which are outdated already and not necessary anymore to go, so that what is truly valuable and nourishing can stay. And it's sometimes difficult for us to do, especially if we have invested a lot of time into something. Then it's even harder to let go. Then it's even harder to, open up for the possibility that perhaps it's really time for this part of ourselves, of our projects, to symbolically die and for us to move on. So this entire lunar fortnight will be really very much about how can I perhaps reevaluate which roles and responsibilities of mine still make sense and which don't anymore. On the other hand, on a global scale, we can also see some bigger shifts in power, bigger shifts in narratives. And I do believe that it might be a very positive change in some places, in some countries, but sometimes can be a little disturbing one too. So we will be seeing a lot of that as being a theme of that fortnight. Though another thing that is perhaps useful to know for those of you who spend more time in meditation, especially for those of you who are Kriya yogis, especially when new moon happens in Magha Nakshatra, it's quite a special one. Because you see, Magha Nakshatra, which forms Gandanta together with Ashlesha, that Gandanta itself in there, between Cancer and Leo, actually represents like the very core, the very center of our third eye chakra, Ajna chakra, which is the seat of our consciousness. And even Sri Yukteswar, the guru of Paramahansa Yogananda, was always referring to Magha Nakshatra almost like this lion gate, like this Simhadwara of our consciousness itself. So whenever sun and moon meet there, in that point in the sky, very often something, even on a deeper spiritual level, realigns inside of us. We get called more strongly to realign not just with our external purpose, but also with our spiritual purpose. As sun and moon, when they will be meeting in Leo, they will be not too far from Ketu, the most intuitive planet. So we too will be inspired during this time to realign with the true voice of our intuition and really follow that, what we feel inside of our hearts, rather than just adjusting to people's expectations of us. And of course, that's a big theme in itself, and it naturally makes this entire dark fortnight quite spiritually charged. And it makes it quite a beautiful time, actually, for deepening your spiritual practice. So I hope you find this podcast useful and that you find this new moon in Magha Nakshatra to be truly empowering for you and truly opening space within you for new to come. I wish you a beautiful new moon. Namaste.